She left her 6 daughters sleeping and walked out of that gate without looking back, not once. It was before dawn. The compound was dead silent. A doggo was already at the gate, one bag balanced on her head, her wrapper tied tight like someone preparing for war. The chief's black car idled on the red dirt road outside, its headlights cutting through the harmattan dust like 2 cold eyes. She did not check on her daughters. She did not say a word to the man standing barefoot at the window, watching her go. She simply walked through that gate, and the last sound she heard was the iron latch clicking shut behind her. Aquiosa stood at that window without moving. Then slowly, he turned around, and what that man did next with nothing but 6 daughters, an empty compound and a broken heart would become the very thing that destroyed her. If stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button right now, because this one is only getting started. Abankwu was not a gentle village. It sat between 2 stubborn rivers that flooded every rainy season without apology, and its red earth stained everything it touched: clothes, feet, memories. People here knew each other's business before it happened, and they had opinions about all of it. Aquiosa had lived in Abankwu his whole life. He was a carpenter, not a wealthy one, but a precise one. Every joint he cut was clean. Every chair he built was made to last. He loved a doggo the same way he built furniture, quietly, carefully, with his whole self. When she laughed, he stopped whatever he was doing just to watch her. When she was sad, he would sit beside her without speaking because he understood that some pain did not need words, only company. A doggo loved him too, once, deeply even, but love, she had discovered, did not fill an empty pot, and their pot was empty often. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made people stare and then quickly look away, as though looking too long was dangerous. She was also brilliant and restless, with a mind that was always 3 steps ahead of the life she was actually living. 6 daughters and a carpenter's income had built a cage around that restlessness, and every year the bars felt closer. Her closest friend Ngozi once told her, during one of their evening walks to the stream, "A doggo, just make sure that when you finally leave poverty, poverty does not follow you wearing a different dress." A doggo had laughed. She did not understand it then. Then Chief Nwabuike came to Abankwu. He arrived on a Tuesday in a long black car with gold rings on every finger and the particular confidence of a man who had never been told no. He was 62. He smelled of expensive cologne and quiet danger. The village shifted around him the way water shifts around a stone dropped into it. He saw a doggo at the market on his 3rd day. He did not approach her loudly. Men like Chief Nwabuike never did. He sent a message through a trusted ear, then another. Small gifts appeared, a wrapper here, a tin of biscuits there, things easy enough to explain away. A doggo told herself she was just being respectful, that it was nothing, that she could stop at any time. She did not stop. Aquiosa noticed the change before he could name it. She hummed differently. She dressed with more care on evenings she claimed she was just visiting a neighbor. One night he reached for her hand in the dark, and she did not pull away, but she did not hold on either. Her fingers just lay in his like something that had already left. He confronted her once, not with shouting. Aquiosa was not a man who shouted. "A doggo," he said, his voice low and steady. "Talk to me." She looked at him for a long moment. "There is nothing to talk about, Aquiosa." But there was everything to talk about, and both of them knew it. The chief delivered his offer on a Friday evening. A house with tiles, a generator, comfort she had never known. All she had to do was leave. That night a doggo sat beside sleeping Amara in the dark, her last born, 3 years old, small fists curled under her chin. She stroked her daughter's face once, gently, the way you touch something you are trying to memorize. Something inside her chest pulled tight and sharp like a wound. She stayed there for a long time. Then she got up, went to the other room, and began to pack. Thursday morning came cold and gray. She moved through the compound like a ghost, quiet, deliberate, already gone in every way that mattered. She walked to the doorway of her daughter's room and stood there. Just stood there. She did not go in. She did not wake them. We will never know what she was thinking in that moment, and that silence is perhaps the heaviest part of this entire story. The gate, Aquiosa at the window, the click of the latch. He did not move from that window for a long time. Then he walked to his workshop, sat on his stool, and held a piece of unfinished wood in both hands without doing anything with it. Just held it. The whole morning passed that way. Chisholm, 11 years old and suddenly the oldest person in the compound, made akamu for her 5 sisters that morning and told them Mama had gone to visit someone. She did not know what else to say. She was 11. Abonku did not stay quiet for long. By afternoon, the story had already grown wings. Women at the stream sang pointed songs that were not quite about anyone specific, but were entirely about a doggo. Elders shook their heads. Her own mother went silent in a way that was louder than any insult. But here is what nobody in Abonku saw, what was quietly beginning in that compound, while a doggo was stepping into her new silk life on the other side of town. 3 months after she left, Aquiosa had lost so much weight that his trousers needed a rope to stay up. The compound had gone quiet in a terrible way. The girls moved carefully around their father like he was something fragile that might shatter if touched wrong. Then one evening, Amara, not yet 4, soft and unaware of the full weight of what had happened, toddled into the workshop, climbed onto his knee, and pressed her tiny palm flat against his chest. Just held it there, as if she was checking that his heart was still beating. She said nothing. She simply looked up at him with her mother's eyes in her father's face. Aquiosa broke. He held that child and wept once fully, completely, the only time he ever would. When he was done, something had shifted, not healed, shifted, like a bone that has been reset, still painful but pointing in the right direction now. What Aquiosa built from that night forward, pay close attention, because this is where the story changes completely. He left for the city 2 weeks later with a borrowed bag and almost nothing else. He found a master furniture craftsman and offered to work for almost nothing in exchange for learning everything. He slept on a workshop floor for 8 months. He ate small. He learned large. Every letter he sent home was addressed to all 6 daughters by name, oldest to youngest, and every single one ended with the same line: "Tell Amara that Papa is coming back bigger." He came back bigger. The workshop he opened in Abonku began with 3 apprentices and 1 hotel contract. Within 2 years, it was supplying handmade furniture to hotels across 3 states. The compound got a new roof, then a borehole, then a generator that hummed through the night, the same sound a doggo had once chased. And his daughters, his 6 daughters. Chisholm was finishing her nursing degree. Adiz had a scholarship. Nkuruka ran a catering business from the compound and had already bought a piece of land. Obiageli was first in her class. Uchenna had a sewing machine and a waiting list of clients. And Amara, the child who had pressed her palm against a broken man's chest and woken something up, was 13 now, with sharp eyes and a mind that made grown men pause mid-sentence. Aquiosa had not just survived, he had built. While all of this was quietly becoming extraordinary in Abonku, a doggo was learning things about silk that nobody tells you before you reach for it. The chief's compound was large and beautiful and suffocating. His first wife, a tall woman named Uloma, treated a doggo with a specific kind of coldness that was more humiliating than open hatred, the coldness of someone who has decided you are not worth the energy of an emotion. The other household women followed Uloma's lead. A doggo ate at the same table and was invisible at it. She tried to give the chief a child. She could not. That detail lived inside her like a stone. She never spoke it aloud, but it changed things in the chief's eyes, in her own, in the slow mathematics of her value in that compound. She told herself she was still happy. She wore her gold and smiled at parties and sent no word to Abonku. Not one word. Not even on the days she thought about Amara's sleeping face and had to press her hand against her own chest to stop something from cracking open. Year 8, the chief fell ill. A doggo nursed him, genuinely, tenderly, perhaps the most honest she had been since she arrived. She bathed him and sat beside him through the long nights and held his hand when the pain was bad. Maybe she even loved him a little, in the way you can love a life even when it has cost you everything. He died on a quiet Wednesday morning. By Friday, Uloma and the chief's sons had arrived with lawyers and documents, and the particular organization of people who had been waiting and preparing. A doggo sat in the parlor while they moved through the compound like water filling a space, and slowly understood that not a single document contained her name. Not one. 3 days, that was what she was given. She packed 2 bags, one less than she had come with. She had lost everything she abandoned her family for, but nothing could have prepared a doggo for what was waiting behind that compound gate when she finally went back. She walked the road to Abankwu barefoot because her last good shoes had given out 2 weeks before. The harmattan wind carried red dust across the road, and she walked through it with her head down and her heart hammering. She stopped 3 times, turned back twice. Each time, hunger and something older than hunger pushed her forward again. She stood at the compound gate for a full minute before knocking. The gate opened. The workshop was humming. Young men moved around it with tools and purpose. The compound had a new roof that caught the morning sun cleanly. There was a borehole with a tap. Somewhere inside the house, a girl was laughing. Akwiwosa looked at her from across the yard. That look, it was not hatred, it was not warmth. It was the look of a man who had closed a very heavy book a long time ago and was mildly surprised to find it had walked back to his shelf on its own. Akwiwosa, she said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. A doggo, he replied, just her name, nothing more. She asked about the girls with her eyes before her mouth could form the question. He told her Chisholm, Adiz, Nkuruka, Obiageli, Uchenna, each name a small wound, each achievement a wall she had not been there to watch being built. When he reached the last name, he paused. And Amara. He almost smiled. You will see for yourself, he said. One by one, 5 daughters appeared in the compound. One by one, they looked at the woman standing in the dust and walked back inside. No shouting, no tears, just silence, which was somehow the most devastating thing of all. Then Amara came. She walked into the compound and stopped. She was 13, tall for her age, with her father's steadiness and something entirely her own, a kind of clarity in her eyes that had never been clouded by the story of a woman who left on a Thursday morning, because nobody had ever told it to her with bitterness. She looked at a doggo, the way you look at a stranger who might need help. The silence stretched. A doggo opened her mouth. Nothing came out. What do you say to the child you left at 3? What sentence carries that weight and survives it? Amara said quietly, Are you hungry? And a doggo broke. Not at the gate, not at the 5 daughters who walked away. Here, undone completely by the simple decency of the child she had abandoned, the child who had no reason to offer her anything and offered her the first thing she had. She sat down in the compound dust and wept the way a person weeps when 10 years of pride finally collapses loudly, fully, without any dignity left to protect. Amara did not hug her. She was not there yet. But she went inside and came back with a plate of rice and a cup of water and set them down beside her without a word. A neighbor who had been watching from the fence whispered to Akwiwosa, How is it that the child she abandoned is the only one who fed her? Akwiwosa answered without looking away from the doorway. Because I never once told that child her mother was evil. I just let her grow up clean. That line moved through Abankwu for years afterward. People repeated it at naming ceremonies and funerals and difficult family meetings. It became the kind of sentence a village keeps. If this story is moving you, drop something in the comments, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Adagio was not restored as wife. That door was sealed, and Aquiosa had long since made peace with it. He had not waited for her. He had built for his daughters. What Adagio became instead had no clean name, not mother in the full sense, not stranger either. Something in between, which takes longer to become than either. Some daughters softened over months. One never fully did, and that too was honest and true, and nobody forced it. Adagio contributed where she could, quietly, without demanding the forgiveness she had not yet earned. Ngozi visited one afternoon, sat beside her, said nothing. The silence between them held everything, including the warning Adagio had laughed at years ago, finally understood. Poverty had followed her, just wearing a different dress. The village gave grace where it could and kept its memory where it couldn't. This was Abankwu. This was Africa. Community does not forget, but it can slowly make room. Some weeks later, Aquiosa was in his workshop, sawdust in the air, tools steady in his hands, the sound of his daughters' voices drifting in from the compound like a song he had earned. Adagio sat just outside the workshop doorway, not inside, not gone, that in-between place that was slowly, quietly becoming something livable. Amara walked past carrying a tray. She paused. Without a word, without a smile, without any grand gesture, she set a cup of tea beside her mother and kept walking. Adagio looked at that cup for a long moment. Then she picked it up and wrapped both hands around it like it was the most precious thing she had held in 10 years. Because it was. Aquiosa never chased what left. He simply built something so solid that even the person who abandoned it found herself standing in its warmth. Some people only understand the value of a home after they have lived in a house. If this story sat with you, share it with someone today. Subscribe if you haven't. More stories are waiting right here.